You know, I knew Biloxi had far more potential than most folks even realized. And when I became mayor, I used my love of Biloxi to make changes of which you fine folks may not even be aware. I am Louis John Braun, and I was born right here in Biloxi on July 1st, 1890. Now, I spent my early years working. I got my first job as a streetcar conductor in New Orleans. And after a few months, I returned home to Biloxi and I started an ice business. And when I came back home to Biloxi, I began courting the girl who'd become my wife, Catherine Garrison Jones.
I was born in Paducah, Kentucky in 1892. I was very little when my parents moved us to Biloxi. Our family was... I met Louis when I was 17 and we began courting. Our courtship wasn't very long. We were married in 1911. We were a very popular couple. The Times-Picayune even ran our wedding announcement, and they called my Louis a prospering young businessman.
And prosper I did. You know, in those early years, I'd do anything to ensure a strong future for my family. I sold ice, wood, coal, and my businesses grew quickly, and so did our family.
Our family grew very quickly. Between the years of 1913 and 1921, I had all three of my babies, Russell, Edgar, and June. The 1920s were a very social decade. With such a large extended family, how could I help it? Between family visiting from all over the country and the children's parties, we quickly outgrew our home. So we had a new one built in 1924 on West Beach Boulevard.
You know, the 20s were also a time of great expansion. I decided to expand my businesses into the canneries and real estate and tourism industries. You know, Biloxi was experiencing a travel boom in the 20s, and the people from up north were enamored of our warm weather. And so in 1926, I joined in with a group of businessmen, and we developed the Tivoli Hotel. It had all the modern amenities, and it opened in 1927. And you know, it did great for a couple years. But with success, there's always risk. The 29 crash hit businessmen everywhere, hard. So we had to sell our home on West Beach Boulevard and move into the Tivoli.
Although it wasn't ideal, it was surprisingly convenient. We had an entire maid service at our disposal. We lived in a large, beautiful building, and I threw too many social events to name. Charity balls, card parties, even a car show or two. We didn't live there very long. You see, with a husband in real estate, you may move a couple of times during your marriage. I moved over 5. And do you know where we moved when we got done at the Tivoli? Right back into our home on West Beach Boulevard.
You know, the Braun Canneries was another business I owned, and it prospered. I decided to open up canning operations in Pass Christian and in Violet, Louisiana. And although we were doing well, the city of Biloxi wasn't. Biloxi needed a forward-thinking mayor who wasn't afraid of a strong challenge. And so I decided that after years of being in the Chamber of Commerce, the Lions Club, the Rotary Club, that I was ready to run for office. Biloxi needed strong and brawny men, and I put the brawn in brawny. Now, I ran a clean campaign. There was none of this muckraking allowed. And when I won the election, I took the oath of office on May 2nd, 1936. And you know, I tried to do everything I could to ensure that we advanced from the Great Depression. And some of the progress that we made in those years can still be seen today.
The next year, President Roosevelt visited Biloxi to take a spot of fishing in the Gulf. And Louis was there to greet him when he got off the train. They rode together to the soldiers' home at Beauvoir. And when they got there, our precious daughter June presented the president with a gavel made from a tree at Beauvoir.
We took advantage of all the government programs that President Roosevelt created with the New Deal. And you know, we used government funds to take Beach Boulevard from 2 lanes up to 4 lanes. We built new fire stations, new schools, We made changes to the community center and to the city hall. We also used funds to create a camp for Boy Scouts. It's still in use today. It's called Camp Wilkes. And we acquired the landmark that represents us to this very moment, the Biloxi Lighthouse. But my largest contribution to the city of Biloxi literally lies right over there. Keesler Field took enormous effort.
Lewis was a very well-traveled man. He spent most of his time as mayor securing funding for his many projects around Biloxi. Now, Keesler took a lot of dealing and planning. Plus, the city had to raise a large amount of funds to guarantee the contract to come here. They did this by selling off surplus lots to the public that were left over from the 1920s developmental boom. Keesler brought a lot of jobs to our area. Your parents or grandparents may have one of the pictures of the workers where they signed which jobs they did. It also brought many high-ranking officers, and Lewis and I hosted many of them and their wives in our home and around Biloxi.
In 1942, I decided to run for re-election, but the people of Biloxi chose to elect Chester Delacruz. Now, I'd have been happy to continue representing the city of Biloxi, but fate had other plans. My health began to go awry. As World War II preparations commenced, the city of Biloxi joined in the war effort. My Catherine and the ladies of the Women's Club sold war bonds, and the federal government was building ships for naval battles and recon, and a light cruiser was named the USS Biloxi. And you know, my Catherine was chosen to go and sponsor the ship.
We decided to take a leisurely vacation on our way to Newport News, Virginia. First, we stopped in Meridian to visit our daughter June, and then in Newport, Rhode Island to visit our son Edgar. We even went to Johns Hopkins Hospital so that Lewis could see the best doctors in the country. And it was an honor to sponsor the ship. And when I got home, they sent me this. I christened a cruiser for the United States Navy, and all I got was a broken bottle.
You know, shortly after our trip, when we returned home to Biloxi, we decided to sell our home on West Beach Boulevard, and we moved into the Hotel Biloxi. And shortly after moving in, I suffered a stroke, which left me partially disabled. I guess my health really never did recover.
We tried to keep life as normal as possible. We still traveled, and I was still a member of Biloxi's Music Club, Women's Club, the Garden Club, and many other charitable organizations. Our son Russell and his wife Louise were a great support during those trying times.
I spent the last year of my life struggling with the illness to which I eventually succumbed, leaving this world in 1951. I left behind my family and my city. You know, Biloxi's future and Biloxi's progress was always my focus. Shortly after losing the election in 1942, I had a letter printed in the Daily Herald, and I believe my words are still applicable to your modern times. It is essential to our continued progress and to the advancement of our municipality that we all work together for a common cause. There should be no animosities, no grievances, no enmities, and no discord.
Lewis was always a very well-spoken man. And longevity was in the Jones blood, and I lived into my 90s, and so did my children. But you know, being Biloxi's first lady and the wife of Lewis Braun, even with its eventual hardships and heartache, well, it was a Biloxi girl's dream come true. Thank you.